What is up, everyone? It is Andrew here of Beat It AT Production and Publishing, bringing you guys a new YouTube video. In this YouTube video, I'm going to be showing you guys a very important step. Actually, it's not even important. It's honestly required if you are a music producer, engineer, or a beat maker. And that would be the mixing process. Now, if you guys want to learn a whole bunch more about music production and see what tools you can use to get the highest quality sound and the best production, then I would give you guys a suggestion to subscribe to Beat It AT TV right now on this page, and leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. We are going to continue and get into this video. So I already made a beat, just a quick little beat, and nothing is mixed. Nothing is mixed, nothing is leveled. All I did was lay down the drums and lay down this instrumentation. And the thing is, a lot of people just do this. A lot of beginners, at least. A lot of beginners just lay down all their instruments and then they think they're done. When one of the biggest steps that will truly make or break your beat sometimes is the mixing process. Because within the mixing process, you're going to enhance the quality of the sound by making all the levels appropriate. Now, and much more. I mean, it's much advanced and dives deeper than that. But in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys my tips and tricks on how I mix and how you guys can use your ears and also get an understanding on how to start. And I've already done numerous videos about mixing and mastering, but I decided that this video would be much needed for those that are just starting. So I'm gonna play what I got just now. As I said, not one bit of mixing is in there, and so you're gonna hear. I'll just play it, and I'll play it again and explain. Now, if anything that you guys noticed about this, you would have probably noticed that everything's so loud and it just sounds clogged or crowded. That's a bad mix. That's essentially like not what I would want. I would want something clean and you can hear all of the sounds individually, as opposed to like this big hodgepodge of just randomness, where it's just too much. Like you can't hear the organ. The violin's a little too loud. The bells are just, everything's just too loud in your face, and you can't hear the drums or even the 808 at that point. And the 808 isn't even mixed, so there's still problems with the 808, I would say. And the kick doesn't have that punch. So these are all problems that we would be facing with this mix right now. We'll play it one more time with that being said of what I just said, so maybe you guys can notice now. So I already made this little beat in our channel rack. We're gonna go ahead and click this, and it should select everything, or you guys can just drag up, it doesn't matter. And pull up our mixer right here. It tells you right over here to view mixer, F9 as well. I'm gonna right click right here, select insert one, right click channel routing, route selected channels starting from this track. So since we selected all these channels, since this is the channel rack, selected it all, and I routed them starting at 1. Our sampler is not going to have anything, so I'm going to pull that down just so we don't get distracted by that. So now, if we play it, So a little tips and introduction, or a little basis is your mix should never go over 0, because after 0 you start reaching distortion, and you get distortion because it starts clipping. You especially don't want it to go all the way up here, but obviously now distortion has become a more common thing that we hear in our music, and what people want nowadays is a very loud track without reaching sometimes that distortion, sometimes reaching distortion. Obviously in this case, I'm having an Atlanta style trap beat. I have a very dignified sound where I'm trying to take this individual beat. With that being said, I want this to be perceived industry quality, in the fact that we're not going to go over 0 dB. We're going to try to keep everything balanced. So these levels of these instruments are like way higher, and all of these instruments are routed into their own mixer channel in here. So these are all like a big mixer board, and these faders, these little knobs right here called faders, we get to adjust them to adjust the gain or total volume of these channels. So obviously we're going to be tuning down all these instruments. I can just go ahead and select them holding a shifting control, and I just drag along to select all of them, because normally I already like to pull all of my instruments down. I always want my drums up front, but I then will pull up the instruments and compensate for that, and then sometimes finish it up in the master. That's a lot to like understand at first of what I'm trying to say, but essentially what I'm trying to say is I'd rather have my instruments perceived a little bit lower volume to my drums. This is the case in rap. It's not always the case in every genre though. Rap, you want your drums to come up on top, but you also don't want your melodies to be completely drained out at the same time. And also, it all just kind of just depends what you want, because at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong way, other than when completely destroying a mix by like jacking everything up super high and doing all this crap. That's where you might get some problems. But we want to try to get a very clean, crisp audio sounding beat. So I'm gonna pull these instruments down and play it while I'm So now that's much better. Still in the works. I think the organ needs some EQing done, cutting out the low end, and then I think maybe putting a half speeder in the Houseworks piano. Putting on these effect plugins is a process of mixing. Normally I like to mix my beat as I go along developing it, as opposed to like laying everything out like how I just did and then mixing it. Normally I don't do that, but for the sake of this video I have to do it. So obviously you can see I pull down that solo violin a lot. I'm trying to bury it under, like push it down, and then The DX era is like the bell lead pluck. It's just really harsh. The problem with that sound is it's like super harsh. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a Fruity Parametric EQ2. Fruity Parametric EQ1 doesn't have a GUI interface or a GUI, graphic utilized interface or whatever. So you would have to do it all by hand. That's not really beginner like, so no point to do it. Plus, if you got EQ2, there's no point to do EQ1. I'm clicking in this and pulling it down to get the cut, the high-end cut or high pass filter, because a high pass filter is allowing the high-end frequencies to come through, and so cutting the low end would be essentially creating more room for the high end, calling it a high-end high pass filter. So cutting. So that's much better than what it was. I'll turn it off. It had a whole bunch of airiness and just like, I don't know, it just didn't sound crisp. But now with the EQ, we kind of get a little bit more crisp sound. Here's with the EQ again. So with this violin, I'm just creating a dip, but I'm actually not creating a cut. I do cuts a lot, and I do the dips a lot. It just comes down to how much do I really need it to do it. If I don't see a need to really adjust the violin a lot, why should I adjust the violin a lot then? So I'm not going to go ahead and cut the low end out of this violin. However, given note that we have an 808 and kicks coming in, I don't want any instrumentation to conflict with it. But at the same time, I'm not trying to alter the sound currently, because I have no need to alter this violin any more than what I did. And let me listen to it again. We might do a little bit of a boost in the mid range. So right there, I was just EQing the organ. Pretty much there, I want to keep some low end on that organ, but obviously, as you can see, I cut a lot of it. I cut a lot of it just because it's gonna get muddy with everything. Low end is harder to fully come out of, and depending on what speakers you guys use, it's also hard to perceive. So you guys might not even hear it on your audio device or your speakers. That's why you guys need to invest in proper audio equipment. I'm using some monitors, Truth monitors by Beringer. Yeah, Beringer. Alright, I probably butchered that pronunciation, but I have some pretty decent, they're a bit older monitors, but they're good and they work. And I am able to get the sound, an accurate sound reading from this. So I'm trying to adjust the EQ on what frequencies I want to get rid of. This is really boring stuff. I'm not gonna lie. At the end of the day, mixing is not the bread and butter of. Well, I mean, it's the bread and butter. Sorry about my phone. But mixing is very essential because, as I said in the beginning, it can make and break your beat. So let's pull up the Houseworks again, the main piano. So I don't know if I really want that groove speed on the main piano. I'll figure that out later. But since I did put the groove speed on, I did have to cut at low end that was coming out. It's gonna be too muddy when we have that 808 coming in. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but that's just it is what it is. So I had to cut a lot of that low end out. So let's start working on some of these drums. So for that cymbal, you can see I put a Parametric EQ on, but I'm not cutting the low end. There's no need to, really. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But there's really not a need with this specific sample, because listening to it, there's really no low end to it anyways. The Parametric EQ tells us where the sound is coming from. So there's just a lot of high end. I just want to kind of do a dip in that so it's not as harsh. Then put a little reverb on it. Now here we got that Zaytoven Vox. So I did the usual, EQ on the Zaytoven Vox, and then a reverb. This time I pulled down the bass and kind of kept it a little bit reverby, but let's hear with it just alone. So you can hear it. Then I got a delay, and I just moved up the time a bit so it's going to go at a certain time. And then I just pulled down the mix level of it, and what the mix level does, and I did ping pong effect, which goes from speaker to speaker. But pulling down the mix level of one of these effects, it's kind of just adjusting the fader of it. It will determine how much of that effect will come through. So I don't want a whole bunch of delay, but I did want the delay to linger. So now what? We get the kick. Alright, so with the kick, I just did the EQ, did a little boost in that low range, just trying to find that thump. But I'm not boosting too low. I'm gonna do like a little cut in the high end. Doing a little EQ, then doing a little reverb. You're seeing me go back and forth. Over here is, I don't like to have my clap louder than my kick, but I like to have it damn near close, the same level. I like to have the kick a little bit louder. One reason for that is since the kick is low end, usually the perception of it is actually quieter. So having it a little bit louder than the clap can help balance it sometimes. But there's also like a thing in hip hop to have your kick and bass coming and booming through, at least nowadays. So and then I'm turning on this snare. Alright, so snare, just an EQ. I can put maybe even a distortion, a reverb. I can put a lot of different things on this. You can be really creative, but for this I wanted it to have kind of like a bounce. So I don't want any of the ambient stuff. Gonna have it not piercing through, but I have it as a little backup. And you can see it was quiet. It's kind of like a backup snare, how I like to call it. So then over here we have the hi-hats. I just pulled that shit down. That shit was annoying. I hate having too high of hi-hats. Another thing I hate is when your hi-hats are just freaking drills at like the high-end frequency, and it just sounds like the transient. And transient is like the sound of anything, whether you're saying a T or whatnot. Transient is, without transient, you wouldn't be able to perceive words, because it's that that brings up the word to be distinguishable. So that's why when you cut high end, it starts sounding muffled. You're getting rid of transient sounds. But that's also why when you boost it, it just sounds like a drill going through your ear, because it's so much of the transient sounds that it's just picking up like almost like, I would say static, but it's just like clicks almost. That's essentially what it is. So I'm going to just do a little dip in that high end. It's a hi-hat, so there's a lot of transient. But no, I'm just saying a dip. So now you can see how we're getting it. Now we got our 808. Now I didn't really edit that little hi-hat brush over here. All I did was pan it to a right a little bit. Reason why I'm not really doing anything to it is I don't feel a need. It's so minuscule that I'm just not going to EQ it. Now, normally I would probably EQ everything so I have a very precise sound, but I mean, you can get, it's rap at the end of the day, and rap music has that grit and crunch to it. So here's this 808. I think something that we might want to do is adjust these 808 patterns. Alright, I think that fixed it, keeping it actually at D sharp. It was just, I was wanting to balance that kick and 808. It just sounded, it was sounding muffled. It wasn't sounding clean and crisp. So doing that EQ, I cut that high end, did a little bit more, did a little boost in that low end, then did a little compression. By boosting the gain, which is really just loudness, the signal going through, then doing a little bit of crunch with the threshold and a ratio. This is all a little bit more complicated stuff when you get into compression, and compression is really just pushing down the low bad part of a sound and then crunching the top. I don't know, it's really hard to describe. That would deserve a video of its own to go into compression. But yeah, essentially this is what we got. It's a rough run through, and I tried my best of explaining every little step to the point, but let's play it one more time. So yeah, that's gonna pretty much give us this. Let me know what you guys think. You guys can listen to the beginning of the video and now to get a reference of pretty much the difference that we got now. I usually keep my kicks louder than the 808s. And so yeah, this is Andrew Rapier here of Beat It AT Production and Publishing. If you guys like this video, be sure to subscribe, like, thumbs up, share, and comment. Comments are much beneficial, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Thank you guys.